NBA season, it's going to be here before we know it. We're just 26 days. That's it. That separates us from that sweet, sweet joy of opening night in the NBA. Teams around the league, they're getting ready for the preseason to tip off. And teams that are playing internationally, they have already started training camp, including the Knicks. See Josh Hart there on the court with that brace on an injured finger as they get ready to open their season in Abu Dhabi, their preseason rather, against the 76ers. Joel Embiid, he's in the gym, but his status for those games and really for the season still up in the air. We hope to hear from him on Friday along with the rest of the Sixers for the first time since he had surgery back in April. So a lot of questions, right, surrounding the 76ers squad. It's a good thing we have the best in the business assembled to answer them. Bobby Marks, Tim Bontemps, I'm Malika Andrews. And Tim, by this time tomorrow, reporters, they should have met with Joel Embiid. We thought we were going to hear an update 6 weeks after surgery. It has been about 6 months. We have heard nothing. What do you want to hear him answer tomorrow?
I want to hear Joel Embiid tell us how he's feeling and what he expects to be able to do this season. That to me is not only the biggest question around the Philadelphia 76ers, it's arguably the biggest question in the entire Eastern Conference. As you talked about a lot yesterday, the East is wide open. And if Joel Embiid is able to be on the court, if Paul George is able to come back from this knee injury, they've got Tyrese Maxey, they've got Kelly Oubre, they've got VJ Edgecombe, the third overall pick in this year's draft, Jared McCain, we'll talk about in a bit. Obviously was going to look like he could be rookie of the year last year before he got hurt. They have a lot of talent on this team. They can compete with anybody in the East, but it all goes back to this guy right here, Joel Embiid, and can he get on the court and can he look like the guy who a couple years ago was going back and forth with Nikola Jokic for MVPs? If that happens, Philly's in business. And if that doesn't happen, the season's going to look a lot like last year. That's going to lead to a lot of questions about the future, not only of Joel Embiid, but of this Philadelphia 76ers team going forward.
So if anyone forgot how many games, as we say hello to our Brian Windhorst, Joel Embiid played last year, he only played in 19 games. That was his fewest since the 2015-16 seasons. This is a guy who averaged a point a minute in 2023-2024. Brian, what have you heard about how the 76ers are planning to manage Joel Embiid here?
Yeah, so I know that there's going to be a big focus of when Joel Embiid is going to be able to play. And I'm not sure that you're going to get a firm answer on that tomorrow or even in the near future. What I think the 76ers want is not so much about when he can start playing. It's about when he does begin playing, keeping him sustainably on the court.
Yeah.
Because he was never right last year. From the first moment of training camp, he was never right. He was fighting against that knee. It took him weeks just to figure out what to do about that injury before he had the surgery. So I know there's such a focus on when to see him out there. It's really a holistic approach. They're really trying to figure out how to keep him upright. And obviously, we also need to hear from Paul George, who had surgery in July, to see when his timetable might be. And I also want to point out, not to focus on the negative, they still have an unsigned key piece in Quentin Grimes, a restricted free agent who's been in a stalemate for months now. That is also unresolved.
And Paul George, Nick Nurse, and Daryl Morey, the GM of the team, will all speak tomorrow.
And Shams has said that Quentin Grimes, he may not even travel with the team on this upcoming international trip as they try to work out this contract here. I don't like this. I don't like that we've started this show in this segment, and I think if we had turned the word surgery into a drinking game, we'd all be drunk 5 minutes in. I don't like this, Bobby. So can you show us what it is the 76ers are actually dealing with, what they're looking at with their roster?
It's the forgotten team, right? Remember last year's offseason winner, the Philadelphia 76ers? They go out and sign Paul George. They draft Jared McCain here. This is the roster. When we look at it, when it's healthy, I think it can compete with New York and Cleveland in the Eastern Conference. Of course, the question regarding Joel Embiid and Paul George and Jared McCain coming back from that injury. Tyrese Maxey, of course, is back. Here's some of the big questions when we look at Philadelphia. Which Joel Embiid and Paul George will we see this year? Both guys certainly limited last year with injuries. Did we learn anything from last year? Look at this. 15 games together, the big three, 1 game under 500. Malika, I think this backcourt, when you look at Maxey, McCain, Edgecombe, and I think, when they add Quentin Grimes, could be one of the better backcourts in the Eastern Conference. And the Achilles, the front court depth, when you look at it, at Dembona, Andre Drummond, Trendon Watford, Justin Edwards. I do think there's an Achilles with this Philadelphia team outside of the injuries. the front court depth where there could be something that they're going to have to address during the season.
I just remember, and I've said this a couple of times, I went out to the 76ers training camp last season, Brian, and when I went out there, before a game had even been played, what Joel Embiid had told me was, okay, this team is assembled so that I can miss games. Of course, not play in only 19, but this is the way that this team was put together. I'm not sure I see what's different from last season to this season. Do you?
No, I think the big concern about Joel Embiid is that he left Paris from getting his gold medal healthy. He was not dealing with any sort of significant knee thing, and when he came to work to begin working up for the season, he wasn't right. And, he searched for a way to deal with that, and, unless that is resolved, in all honesty, we're talking about a middle-of-the-pack team. When Joel Embiid is right, he is one of the biggest weapons offensively the league has ever seen. He elevates them, especially in a conference that is vulnerable. And so, as Bontemps said, that health and where Joel Embiid is, not necessarily on August or on October 1st, but where he could be in the back half of the season is one of the most important things we can see in the NBA going into the year.
Health is the number one question. You've got to have more than 15 games with your big three together on the floor. We're going to have...
At a media day tomorrow, suffered a UCL tear in his right thumb and his shooting hand. It's unclear how long he's going to be out, but I don't think it's going to be a short-term absence. And obviously again, we just spent all this first segment talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and the Joel Embiid situation and everything that's gone on with this team. Jared McCain had a great first 2 months last year, looked like he was going to be Rookie of the Year, suffers a meniscus tear, he's out for the season, really was pretty much the epitome of how last year went.
Yeah.
Now they're out without him to start the year. We don't know what's up with Quentin Grimes, who still is unsigned, the Joel Embiid situation, the Paul George situation. It's truly Groundhog Day in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Very unfortunately, it's really remarkable we're doing this the day before media.
It is so unfortunate for the 76ers. So again, Jared McCain here. We haven't seen him play since December when he suffered that first injury, and now he has an injury in his hand. Brian Windhorst, the impact of this on the 76ers before training camp even begins is what?
Well, typically an injury like this is a 4 to 6 week injury. Obviously, it can vary player to player, but very likely this means that Jared McCain will not be ready to go at the start of this season. As Bobby mentioned earlier, the strength of this team is their guard depth. But, because of the uncertainty of Joel Embiid and Paul George, you're going to need that guard depth. And now that takes a hit. The biggest factor on here is what about Quentin Grimes? Quentin Grimes has been sitting around. Now he potentially gets a modicum of leverage because they're going to need that type of talent. They do have good depth at ball handling. However, it also could mean some more playing time early for Vijay Edgecombe, their high lottery pick. That's one of the big excitement things to look at for the season. However, I'm going to say you don't expect rookies to come in and instantly make gigantic impacts. So this is another setback, and now you have another player that you have uncertainty on when they're going to be able to play their first game.
And if you're wondering where the UCL is, if, Matt, I could show our viewers on your hand, on your thumb, right? It's right here. So, and it is in Jared McCain's shooting hand. It is his right hand. So this is the injury right here that we're talking about, Bobby. What options do the 76ers have now?
Well, paging Quentin Grimes.
Yep.
That's what